Hello there, dear friends and also viewers. What Culture's Adam Cleary here, and if you're wondering why I look like a big haunted sack of skin that's been filled with yogurt, it's because I've had about a measly few hours sleep after seeing the Spider-Man midnight screening for Far From Home last night, and there is, oh boy, is there a lot to talk about. Alright, so a quick recap of the lay of the land going into this film. We just had Endgame a few months ago, and that was supposed to be the big, dramatic culmination of Phase 3, except then we got told, actually, no, it's not. The actual culmination is in the Spider-Man film that's coming on a little bit after that. So, we weren't really sure what to expect, really, were we? It all felt this Infinity Saga like it was building towards the final showdown with Talos, of which, of course, Peter Parker was a part. So what was there to do, really, after that? What was there to discuss? What was there to get your teeth into? And it became pretty obvious it was the legacy of Tony Stark, the MCU's central character for all those many years. And that legacy directly concerns Spider-Man. He was the father figure he'd never had growing up, and likewise he was the son that Tony Stark had not had up until that point. They had this intrinsic bond almost, with Tony wanting to sort of pass the torch to Peter, but without wanting to put all of that on his shoulders. Their relationship was a central part of the most recent section of the MCU. It gave us that incredibly emotional moment in Endgame after all. So this film was going to look at all of that, and it did feel, in a way, like a very fitting way to close the franchise. Sorry, I don't mean close the franchise, I mean close this, little part of the franchise. It'll go on forever, probably. Now, you've probably seen on the internet somewhere all this talk of the post and mid-credit scenes changing the MCU forever, and to be honest, yes, they absolutely do. Ewan will be along sometime, getting his fingers in all of that, unpacking it for you, but I think the actual ending of the film is equally, if not more important, to both the character, the story, and the future of the MCU. So we're going to unpack, look at all the pages I've got, we're going to unpack all of that for you in this video. If you want to watch stuff about the post and the mid-credit scenes, that's Ewan. This is the film, the long thing. And yes, before I start, where's the spoiler warning comes up here somewhere. This is, of course, a spoiler-filled review. How can I talk about the ending of the film without spoiling it for you? If you are still here and you haven't seen it and you don't want it spoiled, this is on you, my friend. This is Spoiler Man, your friendly neighborhood Spoiler Man. So let's go. Number 7, Tony Stark got his wish, but learned nothing. Yeah, my first thought upon leaving the cinema was this does slightly sour Tony Stark's ending in Endgame, because the whole point was that he learned that he could not put this safety blanket around the world, and going from one extreme to the other in trying to protect the planet was just gonna get him killed. Captain America challenged him to be the guy who lay down on the wire, and his story ended with him being the guy who sort of lays down on the... It's a big metaphor, but it did make sense, and it was quite fitting for the character. But here, it was like, yeah, you can't put a safety blanket around the world, Tony. So he's like, no, you're right, I can't, but incidentally, here is the safety blanket I've put around the world. It's all yours, Peter. And that's the whole Edith system that's built into the glasses, which stands for even dead, I'm the hero. Big pop at that, despite how sad it was. And the whole thing behind it is that it's giving Peter Parker this access to Stark Industries, these satellites, these communications. It's basically making him the hero that can protect the entire world, which does kind of roll back on his thing in Endgame, that he wasn't going to do that anymore. But still, it just shows that he got what he wanted after all of these years, even if it meant that it's, meant he learned nothing. Number 6, the multiverse is not open and Earth 833 doesn't exist. Yes, you remember how excited we all got when those first couple of trailers emerged and we were like, oh my god, it's going to be multiverse stuff, because the blip, the snapping, the decimation, whatever you want to call it, has torn this massive, great big hole in the universe. And now all these alternate things are seeping through, and that's the premise to Spider-Man Far From Home, except it's not. Is it at all? It's all just this backstory that Mysterio's writer wrote for him so that Fury would buy it. It is all quite confusing, but the bottom line is there is no multiverse, or if there is, he's not proof of it. Obviously, we will get onto Mysterio and all of his stuff in a little bit, but all those scary, big elementals just smashing everything up and setting fire to it and throwing water at it, they were merely a projection using Tony Stark's barf technology, which, if you watched video I did about a year ago, and that word is ringing a bell for you, we'll address that at the end, I promise. Number 5, Tony Stark was looking for a replacement. Just to circle back to the first point I made in all of this, the little message that Tony leaves Peter when he hands him the glasses does imply that all this time he was looking for a direct replacement to Iron Man. He saw the importance that figure had protecting the world, and he wanted somebody else to take up that mantle when he was gone. Now, this is me splitting hairs here. He seems to have done a lot, Tony Stark, before his death. He recorded that message in Endgame. He did all these takeover protocols, the glasses, the little note to Peter, all the things he's left everybody, really remember when in Endgame he got the chance to do all of that, although it is a film about time travel, so I suppose there will be some convoluted explanation for it, but I was just like, yeah, this dude knew he was gonna die. Big time. Now that's a pretty big revelation in of itself, but you've got to remember the specifics of the actual ending. He has just saved the world from catastrophe, from massive levels of destruction, but the actual ending, he's not wearing the Iron Man suit. He's not doing Stark stuff. He's wearing his own costume, doing the friendly neighborhood stuff, which means he has rejected this idea of being Iron Man's replacement and is instead being his own hero. Now, yes, what happens in the mid-credit scene does mean that his priorities may likely change in any future films, but in that moment, the world still hasn't got an Iron Man replacement. God knows it wasn't going to be Mysterio. It's apparently not going to be Peter Parker, and with all the other Avengers either disbanded or scattered or unavailable, as we keep finding out during the film, that's a slot that is open for somebody to take. Number 4, there's still a secret invasion going on. Now, I know I said Ewan was going to get into all the detail about this, and I'll let him handle the ins and outs of it, but I will have to skim over some of it quite quickly because it is quite important for the implications of the ending of the film. And the main one for me was the revelation that it was never Nick Fury, it was never Maria Hill, it was Talos and his pal. Now, if you cast your minds back to when Captain Marvel came out, we thought this would sow the seeds for a big secret invasion storyline between the Skrulls, the Kree, and obviously humanity caught in the middle of all of that. But the way it panned out with the Skrulls kind of being a bit of more of a funny race of people, they were kind of a bit of a comic relief factor in that film. We thought, well, they're not doing that, are they? Because they're not really that scary or that bad. But here we get, they are living on Earth. They are taking the responsibilities of Fury, who is clearly working with them, but they also mention about Kree sleeper cells. So that whole thing is still going on. Quite where they're going to go with this, we're just going to have to wait and see. But we do have the premise laid down that in the present day of the MCU timeline, there are a number of hidden in plain sight aliens on the planet Earth. Whether they're friendly, like the Skrulls, or they're enemies, like the Kree, they are there. They are the basis for a secret invasion storyline, and we could get some approximation of it going forward. Number 3, Peter Parker's secret identity is revealed. Yes, and just to address the other gigantic, monstrous, elephantitis elephant in the room that is the mid-credit scene, Peter Parker's identity has been revealed, but more important than that, they actually got J.K. Simmons to reprise his role as J. Jonah Jameson, and the screech, the pop in my cinema for that was unlike anything I've ever heard ever. Not going to get too bogged down in my excitement for all of that because, as I say, Ewan will be unpacking it in far more detail, but the main takeaway from it is that Quentin left behind after his death a doctored video message that seems to implicate that Peter killed a whole lot of people in London before then killing him to protect that secret. Then he reveals his secret identity and just Now, of course, secret identities haven't really been too big a thing in the MCU up until this point. Like, the whole thing started with Tony Stark announcing that he was Iron Man, and we always knew Steve Rogers was Thor. That's his actual name from Asgard. S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of became more of a public thing, and just by and large, there's not really been a lot of secret identity stuff going on. We haven't really had those kinds of heroes yet, except for Peter Parker. He's very much in the spotlight as one of the Avengers. He's definitely famous around New York at the very minimum, but he's always kept his identity a secret. He keeps his mask on when he's doing all these public meetings because he has a lot of people that he needs to protect, his friends and his family. Now, this is us extrapolating this one ever so slightly, but there's going to be no way he can ever come back from this, surely. His whole secret identity was an intrinsic part of his character because of his youthfulness, because of his innocence, and because he needed to protect those around him. We've already seen he's rejected this idea of being a global hero and instead wants to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But the second you unmask him in public and then accuse him of all these horrible things for which there's probably no proving he didn't do them in the first place, you can't go back to that. That can't ever go back in the box. So what if it was never meant to? What if, and this is just whatculture.com thinking out loud as we are prone to do in these situations, what if Marvel pitched to Sony a 3-film arc that effectively retires the character? They do the young Spider-Man they always wanted to do, make him an intrinsic part of the Infinity Saga and the MCU, and then at the end, they retire the character because we've had a lot of Spider-Man in the last 10 or 15 years. Like a lot of Spider-Man. It needs to maybe go away for a bit, and having a self-contained story in which he's forced to retire as a hero would work and be incredibly sad. So yeah, maybe don't expect a Spider-Man 4 would be my advice. Number 2, Could Mephisto be coming? Now again, this one is slightly out of left field. I think that's left. I can never, because the camera's always reversed and I'm looking at it. I think that's the left field. Is that the left field? One coming right out of either left or left field is the idea that this can be resolved in some way without either killing or retiring the character. And for that, we must delve into Spider-Man lore to find a story that works. And in particular, One More Day, it's not exactly regarded as one of the most critically acclaimed Spider-Man stories, but it would work really well for this situation. Basically, we all know that Spider-Man's loved ones are in danger. We know his secret identity has been revealed. Things can never be the same again, and people go after Aunt May, they go after MJ, all these horrible things happen, things look really bad, and then Spider-Man, what does he do? He cuts a deal with the actual devil. He finds Mephisto, who is pretty much the devil in the MCU, and he barters with him to undo all of this in exchange for, not his soul, but his marriage to MJ, which, already felt that. I actually felt that just saying it. Now, we haven't exactly had any teasers of that particular character thus far, but we didn't have any for Vulture, and we certainly didn't have any for Mysterio for these two films, and look at how well Marvel modernized those two for this particular story. He is somebody who would work really, really well in this, and it would give you just the emotional stakes to have a satisfying conclusion to all of this. He gives away the one thing he's wanted throughout the entire 3-film arc, and fixes everything and protects everybody in the process. He makes the sacrifice just as Tony Stark did it. Now, yes, I'm freewheeling here. There's nothing really teased in the ending of the film about that. It's just, it would line up really nicely, and we like to speculate on these things. In the comments, you know what to do. Number 1, Nick Fury has set up Sword. Yes, it was pretty obvious from this film that S.H.I.E.L.D. was just gone out of here. Bye, laters, nada, zip, see ya, bottom of the shoe. And then at the end, the revelation it wasn't even Fury or Maria Hill just kind of confirms that even more. There's no heroes. I used to know everything, he says, or he tells Talos to say. Now I'm getting ghosted by a kid. It's on its arse, S.H.I.E.L.D., but in the final shot of the final post-credits, we discover that no, it's not. So we all know Nick Fury was never going to stop at anything to protect the Earth. Once he sees all these horrible things coming out of the sky, doesn't he? He's always like, no, I'm Nick Fury. I must stop that happening despite me just being an old man with one eye and a gun. But we see in the final shot, don't we? Him and his new pals, the Skrulls, have got a little pet project, and it's called, we believe, SWORD, which I've had to write down because I won't remember. It stands for Sentient World Observation and Response Department. That is an acronym that I can really get on board with. Or an initialism. I'm never sure which one's which. And of course, the idea from all of that being that the threats are no longer coming from the Earth. They are no longer mad Nazi scientists or just disgruntled construction workers with nice jetpacks. The real threats are coming from intergalactic places like Thanos and Galactus and all these other threats that come. And basically, Fury stops looking at the planet and trying to protect it. He starts looking at space and trying to protect it. And we see it's like a space platform, don't we? So that makes sense. That fits really well. That would be a really interesting direction for them to go because space is cool. Look, bottom line here, Nick Fury is now best pals with loads of shape-shifting space aliens, and he's now living on a space platform with loads of shape-shifting space aliens, so probably space is going to be a big thing in the MCU for Phase 4. I'm not going to make a bet, am I? Because we know what happens when I do that. And yes, speaking of that, I'm aware that because I said Barth was going to be a major part of Avengers Endgame, and it wasn't, was it? It was a part of the film after Avengers Endgame. I do owe you all a commemorative cup saying that I was wrong. So get me on Twitter at Adam Cleary. Tweet me, remind me that you were one of the people who said at the start that it wouldn't work, and I will. I'm gonna get them made. I don't know what they're gonna say yet, but I will get them made, and I will find a way to send them out to all of you. That is my penance, and I've been stewing over it since Endgame. So there you go, commemorative cup coming your way at Adam Cleary on Twitter. Register your interest in getting a piece of my soul. But anyway, those are all our takeaways from the ending of Spider-Man Far From Home. Let us know what you made of them all in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But in the meantime, though, thank you so much for watching. I have, of course, been Adam Cleary, and I will see you soon. I will. I promise. Bye.